talking about the corrupt venal atmosphere in Washington and trying to price carbon offsets and things like that to use normative economics, the economics of what's desirable, to stop the huge sucking sound on our economy. So, when you start thinking about restructuring the venal, corrupt power game of Washington, and talk about putting the power into the hands of the people, you see a guy like Obama who's not afraid to basically speak directly and not water it down too much, depending exactly on the audience, but he never does seem to talk down to people. He has a sort of straight talk point when he's with people that he's not sure exactly what their experience has been. Then with in cases where he's doing a big presentation, not a town hall presentation, he doesn't talk down at all. He'll use his whole intellectual arsenal. So when you see that, and you see somebody trying to restore power to the people, and you see the corrupt venal Washington establishment, you say, how do we just take it over ourselves? Let's just take over the government ourselves. And I have a proposal or a model which is basically you can override your legislator. So a legislator who votes on a bill, he represents so many people. So if one of those people directly vote online, his vote tally would just drop by one person, but it would allow direct democracy as well as representative democracy and internet voting, so you can keep the current construction and gradually replace it and fine-tune it. That way we can have direct citizen democracy in the information age. So we have to start thinking about how do we take this information age and just let people get to work, instead of having this system where you're out of the shed laughing and sharpening your tools on the government clock like my dad did at the Bonneville Power Dam when he was 19 years old. This disconnection from who you're accountable from. The other point I wanted to make there is, Hillary, I think, came up with this plan for a bunch of new cops. What do we need all of these new cops for? Cops are basically things to guard the barn door after the horse is out. That's because they are used when communities are fragmented, fractured, economies are down. You don't need that many cops in a prosperous, healthy community. So every time you're buying a cop, you're basically not buying a teacher. And there used to be maps in the 80s and 70s in the Soviet Union, the United States, and in those maps it showed how many teachers and how many military and police. So, where I live in Half Moon Bay, if I drop by the 7-Eleven at 3 in the morning, I've seen as many as 8 police in there. Now, I like the local police. They're nice guys, but what the heck do we have 8 guys sitting around there with, stress on our local school system? We don't have a lot of things in our school system. The sports you have to try out for. My 2 daughters can't do sports this year because they're not super sports nuts, and they're not the top kids, and you have to apply and compete for each position in a sport like tennis or volleyball. And we've got 8 cops sitting at the local 7-Eleven at 3 in the morning, and what do these guys do most of the time? Write tickets to people for going 49 in a 40-mile-an-hour zone on Highway 1. What's with all the cops, Hillary? Let's get some money into our educational system. And let's see here. So to wrap it up, the middle class and the poor are taking it from 5 ends right now. The first is we have a huge government debt, and it's approaching $10 trillion. When I was a kid, the age of the guy who left the first Obama video, our debt was approaching $1 trillion. That works out to about $2,000 a year per person in the U.S. interest. If the interest rates go up a little bit, the dollar's basically turning into toilet paper right now, so the interest rates probably will go up. That's the first way we're taken in the gut, because we have paralyzed our ability to fund things. Second, stagnant wages. As Barack said, we haven't had real wage increases in this country since the early 70s. Overall, the rich have gotten richer, Surprise, surprise. Third, there's outsourcing. That's very staggering, the number of white-collar jobs leaving this country. So I have this guy who came to visit me from Chile to interview with me at my company, and I was interested in starting a operation in Chile, so I interviewed him. He ended up overstaying his business visa. It was like a 3-month visa. So I've been trying to work out with him to fix his status here and resume the project to start our operation in Chile. And it turns out, I was trying to look at the different regulatory requirements of having an employee here who, and what is my duty to have an employee here or to have an employee outside the country? Well, my duty for an employee outside the country, as far as I can tell, is nothing. I don't have to file anything. I just send a check, wire the money, eBay it, PayPal it, and keep virtually no records. I have no responsibility whatsoever. Now try looking at what your responsibilities are if you have a guy here. So I just put this guy in a plane, send him to a foreign country. I have no regulatory requirements. I don't have to pay him health care. I don't have to reimburse him if he gets injured on the job. I don't have to pay him $1 an hour. I can pay him whatever I want. I have no responsibility. Just got to get him on a plane or hire somebody over there. So this is a pretty serious problem when why not have more similar playing field for an employer when he's trying to decide, well, if the guy's 5 feet on this side, my costs are nothing, and over here my costs are very high. And that's why a lot of American farms are moving to Mexico. I mean, it's really dumb. Now, whether that means lowering all the requirements here or raising them elsewhere, I'm not certain yet exactly how you balance all that out. So that's the third problem we're taking in the gut from. Our jobs are going out of the country. The only thing we have left in this country is services, and what are the jobs that are leaving? Any service that you don't have to literally touch the person to provide. And then you've got deindustrialization. We've deindustrialized our country. The only thing we're still industrialized to do on this kind of, well, not the only thing, but the main thing is to make guns and the military industrial system, which is a huge, wasteful, subsidized area. Instead of investing in basic research, and instead of investing in protecting our local economies so that the blue-collar jobs were still there through some reasonable form of tariffs. So it's a little more expensive to bring something in from outside the country. We just toss the whole thing out. So we've deindustrialized. Now we're setting our service jobs overseas. So we don't make anything, and the primary reason for economy to exist is disappearing. Farming was only 1 or 2% of the economy towards the end of this last century. It's probably going to get more because of the pollution problem and the fear people have of tainted food, which is going to get worse and worse. But we still do some farming, but it's only 1 or 2% of our economy. And then they're taking it in the gut in their minds by illegal immigration, and that was the point I was trying to make about outsourcing, which is, for example, this friend of mine or this colleague who came from Chile, if I employed him here under the table, he would pay taxes, sales taxes, he would pay rent, he would buy food. If I put him on a plane to Chile, he will buy none of that. If I outsource the whole tech support department to China, I don't have to pay any of that. So it's vastly worse for our economy to make the whole job go overseas than to hire somebody locally to do it who doesn't have proper documentation. And so I hope all of you Republicans out there will stop beating up on Mexicans and start beating up on the Fortune 500 corporations for shipping your jobs to countries that don't have human rights or environmental safeguards, because that's a much bigger problem. Because every country that's got a poor neighbor country is going to have people from that country coming in to take care of their kids and do their lawns. When in Chile it's the same thing. They got all these people coming in from Peru competing with the traditional Indian ladies, Indian meaning from the local tribes, the Mapuches, who traditionally took care of the kids of the upper middle class. And so that's 5 different ways the middle class and the poor taking it in